10.5 FM, the air of success.
We are in the 5 o'clock hour, and if it's 5 o'clock, it's hard copy. Hard Copy is a presentation of the McKinney Media Group. Copyrights 2016, all rights reserved. The views, statements, and opinions of guests expressed on this show does not necessarily reflect the views of the host, sponsors, or operators of this radio station. No part of this program may be copied or reproduced in full or in part without the express written consent of the producers, the McKinney Media Group. This is Hard Copy on the McKinney Broadcasting Radio Network, and Hard Copy, as you know, seeks to lay out the facts in simple fashion for the inclusion of all Bahamians and Bahamians at heart. The focus every day to move forthright in our manner to build a progressive and developing country. Our desire is for a Bahamas with a competent, skillful, and productive workforce. We want a country that can feed and sustain itself. We want a country with a brilliant, visionary action plan, ready to embrace a future of hope and prosperity. We encourage like-minded Bahamians just like you to participate with intelligent and honest contributions. This is our country, the only one we have. This is the country we have to build. We've got jobs and industry to create, a people to inspire and empower, and generations of born and unborn Bahamians we, the people, must protect and plan for. If not you, then who? If not now, then when? Today on Hard Copy, ORG, the Organization for Responsible Governance. And we've got them here with us today because we need a break. We need to see which way we're going. And in a minute, we'll talk with our special guest.
Double Down is here. Shop at Super Value or Quality Markets now through June 2016 and receive double quality stamps and 1% cash back when you pay with your SunCard MasterCard. With 24-hour ABM convenience, online support services, and no annual fee for the first year, SunCard MasterCard is the card that gives you double. Double up your quality stamps when you double down with Commonwealth Bank's SunCard MasterCard at Super Value and Quality Markets.
Birthdays, weddings, christenings, Christmas, all these days have one thing in common. They are special. Well, with great savings throughout, every day is special at Super Value and Quality Supermarkets. Kraft macaroni and cheese, a 7 1/4 ounce box, $1.09. Western vegetable or corn oil, 28 ounce, $3.99. Bluebird juice, selective flavors, the 11 1/2 ounce size, 89 cents. Danish spare ribs, $2.39 per pound. Red Globe grapes, $1.49 per pound. Celebrate by Bahamian Month at Super Value and Quality Supermarkets.
How the exercise going?
Not too good.
What happened?
Now, you know, Mr. Junior make me one treadmill.
Make?
You know how he like tinker. Anyhow, he built this treadmill and he hook it up to one of them clothesline, which you could spin. You know the kind what I mean?
You mean the one would look like the upside down umbrella?
That's the one. He figure that since I was working out, I just power up one of them clothesline. So he hook it up direct to the treadmill.
Oh, so whilst you're walking, clothes spinning. Makes sense to me.
Makes sense to you, eh? You know how heavy that clothes is? But anyhow, I right there struggling to get the treadmill going. Slow. She start to go now. The treadmill going and the clothes spinning. This time now I building up speed. I running now. The clothes spinning fast now.
You're flying now.
Yes, and so was the clothes. You would have thought he had enough sense to screw the thing down, eh?
The clothes going?
I see where they lying yet.
So what you gonna do?
Go back to Superwash where I should have gone in the first beginning.
Superwash. It washes your presses and cleans you 24/7.
When I fly with Sky. Sky Bahamas. When I fly with Sky. Sky Bahamas. The plane them spanking clean. The pilots their voice red. They fly you out on time. They flight attendants great. Service is their passion. With you they take good care. Safety is their culture. Yes, they'll get you there. When I fly.
Fly with us to Fort Lauderdale or the beautiful Bahama Islands. Book today at 702-2600 or visit our website at skybahamas.net and experience Sky.
Please.
Government better get itself coordinated, organized. We're going in reverse. There's been no governance in this country for some time. Try something different. Try something innovative.
We are playing childish games.
In my judgment, this is the worst administration in the history of this country.
And where they are failing, nobody can wait on them.
I feel like there are some persons that are going to try and make a difference. Now, will we be given the chance to?
We got to be able to sow seeds of hope and a realistic feeling that it might not happen yet for me, but it's coming.
You got to be joking.
It is Tuesday, the 26th day in the month of April, 2016, as you battle the congested city streets and drive home traffic. Sunny skies right now. Good day to go for a walk. Take your hat, take an umbrella, and take some energy. 82 degrees right now in the nation's capital. A low tonight of 72. The rain chance is 40% at 6 o'clock. And it drops off to 30% around 7. Clear skies later tonight with 72 as far as the temperatures is concerned. Thank you so much for joining us on the drive home. I'm Steve McKinney. This is Hard Copy. We are brought to you today by Nassau Motor Company, Commonwealth Bank, the Ministry of Tourism, Clean Insurance for comprehensive coverage, Bahamas Foot and Ankle on Blake Road, Super Wash with 10 locations, Bank of the Bahamas, the Bank of Solutions, Super Value, the All Bahamian Supermarkets, the McKinney Media Group for effective PR concepts and advertisements, Advantage Insurers and Brokers, column 61 Collins Avenue, Ron's Electric Motors, Clariton Wolf Road, Sky Bahamas, professionals in every way, every day, CFAL, Cleaner Financial Advisors Limited. We're also brought to you by Executive Printers, Henry F. Store, the Light People on Mackey Street, Buddy's Wings and Greens in Fox Hill, right across from Freedom Park. Good place to go to get some snacks and some healthy food at Buddy's Wings and Greens. Today on the show, we're going to talk with the folks from the Organization for Responsible Governance. Their time has come. They're fighting for a brighter Bahamas. All of us are fighting for a brighter Bahamas. We find them quite interesting today, and we want to talk with them about any number of things. You can call us later on at 325-023-546. For those of you around the world, we're on the World Wide Web at peace1075.com, cable top box 970 here around the New Providence area in the Bahamas. You can get us around the world on TuneIn Radio, iPad, iPhone, and the Android. Follow us on Facebook, Hard Copy, and on Twitter, Hard Copy Bahamas. And you can also, right now if you want to, follow us on Instagram at Hard Copy 242. Like us on Facebook, Hard Copy. Subscribe to us on YouTube. Follow us on Twitter. Watch us live on Google+. Just follow the link from our Facebook page, and you will see us in the studios. Well, listen, the last time I spoke with someone from the Organization for Responsible Governance, this happened inadvertently. We were talking about a number of things. Anicio Diagla was with me, and we were talking about a number of things that are causing some problems in the Bahamas because of not the kind of governance that we ought to be having in this 21st century. And a number of things are wrong. You don't need me to tell you the many things that are wrong in this country. And while we're trying our best, I suppose, in the governance to get it right, we have a number of areas that are just structurally wrong. And of course, we need to fix those things. How are we going to fix it? We've got to find the bright minds of the country and those who are, in fact, willing to put their shoulder to the wheel and to take some time to do something for country. And there are a number of people who have begun this process of doing something for country, and they are part of a group of people, and anyone can be a part of it. They are open to everyone and anyone who only need to have the ambition to want to build a country, want to fix things for a brighter Bahamas, and that is in the governance and the economy and all those kinds of things. And you know, we can use all the help that we can get. Last time I spoke with Anicio Diagla, he was talking about ways to fix the economy. Today I will talk with two very special guests, Matthew Aubrey and Lana Lee Brogan. And she is the president of New Oriental, as you know. And of course, Matthew is the executive director for the Organization for Responsible Governance. He's a licensed master social worker and a graduate of the Hunter School of Social Work. He has a very, very wonderful, many wonderful attributes to his name. His resume is beautifully decorated, I say, and he is obviously a qualified individual who understands the whole concept of fundraising and marketing for a nonprofit management organization. And so he sits at the head of this particular organization in the Bahamas, wanting to make sure that we can get some things right. I will introduce them to you in a minute, but first I have to tell you that we have to look at so many areas of our development. You know the stories. You know that we have a mortgage crisis right now. You know that we have people who are more dependent these days on politics and everything else than on their own talents. And they've been so dependent for so long that they have perhaps been exploited by the political system that we do have. And you know that our economy is not what it ought to be. It's not growing the way it's supposed to be growing right now. And it's actually flat line. There's projected growth of about 1 point something later on, but that's not now. It was supposed to be at 2.2, but that would have only been if Bahama had come on stream. And Bahama is still somewhere out there in hinterland as far as it really being completed and ready for open, notwithstanding that they had that IDB meeting the other day. And we're hoping that because of that meeting, some things may have happened that would cause the powers that be in different places on the world scene to take a look, see if they can help us out of this jam with Bahama. But we are not going the way that we expected to go. This whole thing about projections on junk bond status could be something that can haunt us. We don't know. We've just gotten the downgrade to BBB+. And we don't know what that means. It's a step away. We don't know if we're going to get out of the woods because Standard & Poor's is saying one thing, Moody's is saying another thing. The Bahamas government has not done all that it can do to, shore up the kind of revenue that they should to pay the bills, even though we've done value-added tax. Is this enough? And what are we doing with all these things? So there's an organization that has come about, the Organization for Responsible Governance. And maybe this can be the kind of lobbyist organization, the kind of put the fire to the feet organization that will keep the government on their toes, any government, to get things done for the betterment of the Bahamian people at large. And I suppose in a nutshell, that's where we're going today. So if you have some good, beautiful ideas that you want to talk about today, be a part of the show, call, let's talk with the special guest, Lana Lee, that we're going to have here with us, and Matthew Aubrey. And we shall be able to mix it up, and they can also tell us more about this organization called Organization for Responsible Governance. D'Aguilar, though, is always a firebrand when he comes. And he was telling me the last time that he was there, this was in February, ways to fix the economy. Let's open with that and then bring our guests in.
How do you attract the best and the brightest minds back to this country to create opportunities? In order to create jobs, you need the best and brightest minds. So you need to figure out a way to, first of all, get the best and brightest minds, Bahamians preferably, to come back, to start businesses here. And nothing is being done to attract them. I mean, the only company that I was aware that ever did that was Bahama. I mean, they went scouring the planet looking for Bahamians to work in their facilities. And they went to the major cities in the United States and Canada and the United Kingdom to try to get Bahamians to come back. But our government is seeming not that's not a priority. It's a challenge. It really is a challenge of how to get people with ideas to come here and to set up businesses here. And we're not exactly friendly to foreigners. We always think they're trying to take our country and run with everything. But most businesses, I think you touched on it earlier, technology. If people were to come in here and use this as a hub to set up new businesses, set up, as the caller earlier said, set up corporate headquarters here. Why are all the jobs going to Trinidad? Why is CIBC and Royal Bank of Canada for their Caribbean operations headquartered in Barbados and Trinidad? Why not here? I mean, this is where they make most of their money. And then another thing is the fact that, we have to ask ourselves, our government is so intent on protecting people who are not paying their mortgages. Maybe that's a reason why these banks are getting out of here.
Yeah, Denicio D'Aguilar talked with me back in February as we talked about some plans going forward. We would talk about any number of issues in the country that seem to be plaguing the country, and he talked to me about this whole organization called Organization for Responsible Governance and said that we're going to get things moving. And so today we're going to talk with Lana Lee Brogan and close, and of course Matt Aubrey, who in fact is the executive director for the Organizations for Responsible Governance. Of course, Lana Lee is the co-founder and counselor of the Organization for Responsible Governance, and is currently serving a second year as director of the board of the Bahamas Chamber of Commerce, and she was also a public relations director for the now defunct Coalition for Responsible Taxation. So we're talking with two individuals who understand what it is that we're trying to do, where we should be going as a country, and the fact that we're not getting there perhaps as quick as some people would like, because there are some stubborn things in the system. Structural changes may have to be made, attitudes may have to be cultivated, better education for our young people may have to be done, and there has to be a general attitude of wanting to build a country that is going to be prosperous and wonderful for all people. And it sounds like, what are these things that you call utopia? But no, we can do this. We are a fast developing country, even though we've lagged behind some countries. A lot of people want to be here. A lot of people want to do things. But how do we make sure that the Bahamian people who are here, along with the import of foreign investors and the rest of who want to come to help us build the country, how do we make sure that there's a wonderful mix to get this process going? And where do we start? Is it from the point of view of looking at what the problems are and then suggesting some things for structural changes within the governance of the country? Or is it just that we have to just break out and do some things and let the other people who are in authority come along? Because I've seen a glimpse of that recently when we had that hurricane. And I saw that the private sector just got and did some things. And the next thing we knew, that everybody was trying to be in step with it. So, Matt, we open with you and we say good afternoon to you. How you doing?
Good afternoon, Steve. Thank you so much for having us here.
Wonderful. And, of course, Lana. Lana, give me that name, that last name. Brogdon. Brogdon. Okay, yes. No problem. I got it. I hope I get it right. Tell Mr. Brogdon don't be mad with me.
He's used to it.
It's a beautiful name, and I salute him and everything else. And so tell him not to. Don't hold it against Steve, all right?
Usually my Aubrey becomes Albury here in the Bahamas. So.
Yeah, your Aubrey, your Aubry becomes Albury, right?
Yes.
But it's Albury.
Yes, everybody thinks I'm related to folks in Eleuthera, so I take it. I take it as a compliment.
Well, listen, you've been doing a whole lot of work in this whole area of organizing things, and your background is really, for the most part, in you have expertise in fundraising, marketing for nonprofit organizations, that kind of stuff. And you are now at the executive position of the executive director of the Organizations for Responsible Government. So what is the workload? What are we looking at? What's the ambition? Let's talk about that so we can bring our people in.
Well, thank you. The organization is actually called Organization for Responsible Governance.
Mm-hmm.
It's really important that we accentuate that because we want to let people understand this is an apolitical effort. This is a neutral platform.
Governance, not government.
It's not about a particular government, this one that's in power now or anyone that will come subsequently.
Mm-hmm.
What we feel is that regardless of who's in the position of public service, we want a structure that's going to be responsive, that's going to be consensual, that's going to be participatory, a place where every citizen has the opportunity to feel like what they do and what they input to it will matter, and that they will know why and what for is happening within governments. I think it's critical when we look at what the organization is about, and very simply, we're a membership-driven organization that's focused on ensuring that there will be accountability, that there will be a focus on education reform, and that there will be appropriate economic development in the Bahamas. What we understand is that these three things are essential to our growth going forward. Most recently, I saw a public poll that talked a little bit about people's perceptions on the challenges and issues of the Bahamas, and obviously the greatest ones that were targeted were crime and unemployment, and that's obvious, but the underpinnings of those come back to accountability and transparency, the rule of law. They come back to having an education system that prepares our next generation to inherit this world and deal with the challenges that they are going to face, and an economic profile of our country that stimulates growth, that fosters local investment, that recognizes local talent and moves it forward.
Now, let me ask you this question. Has it been your observation or the observation of the organization that we have not been concentrating enough, focusing enough on the structural changes that needs to be made? What has been your observation along the lines? Are we open-minded as a country and as a people to move in that direction? Or are we thinking that we got this, we know what we're doing, it's going to come together, it's just a matter of time? What is it that you're facing, and how urgent is this paradigm shift needed that we need basically in the governance of the Bahamas?
I think it's imminent. I think we have to make a move very soon, because I think what will happen is we'll get so far out that we can't come back. Org is actually, though, developed not out of a pessimistic view that we're headed toward the cliff, but a very optimistic view on some recent incidences. You and I would have had the occasion to talk when we had the hurricane, and you recall we talked about the private sector stepping forward. Well, it is within that effort and impetus that you see a lot of folks coming from the private sector that are very interested in supporting it, whether they be on the corporate side or from civil society. What I've put forward before is that I feel like we all understand that the car is broken, right? But we're all pushing from different directions. And so we kind of need to just line ourselves up behind and push forward. And that's what org really is looking to provide. We don't feel like we have the magic answers. We don't feel like we have to serve as the end all be all. What we want to do is facilitate all those organizations, all those interested members and individuals and organizations, and collectively, how can we put our efforts towards the most effective and efficient way to move forward?
But the key is you've got to have accountability. You've got to have transparency. You've got to have accountability from a point of view that people have been talking and clamoring for years now about an Information Act that has not come to the surface yet, even though I believe that they're now working on some things. And one would wonder, how do we move forward in the absence of these kinds of basic things that we should have, so that we can have a structure? We can see that this is the roadmap. Now, on this roadmap, we need these signs to know exactly where to turn and where to go through. And one of those signs, a telltale sign of if we're going in the right direction, is that we have an Information Act that can say, here's what it is, full transparency, full disclosure on everything. And not only that, not just on paper, we see it duplicated in the attitude of those who are leading in everywhere, civil society, the politics, the church, governance, that whole thing. We see it. But how do we move if these caveats, these most needed structural pieces are not in place? Lana.
Yeah, Steve, we agree on that. And I think we can't move anywhere without having accountability. And accountability is such a loaded subject, right? Under there, you've got not just freedom of information, transparency. You've also got even enforcement of the rule of law. Fair play. Yes, fair play. No corruption, no cronyism. All of those things come under accountability. So that's a loaded subject. And one of the things that came out of our recent think tank that we had just a few weeks ago, which included many local civil society organizations, the College of the Bahamas, Nassau Institute, social workers, and also we had a panel of experts that came in the areas of accountability, FOIA, which is the Freedom of Information Act, education. One of the things that came out of this think tank is that we can't move forward without freedom of information. And so we actually are in the midst of planning an event to educate the public and to have that discussion on why that is so important, because I think the general public doesn't understand how that can, why do we need freedom of information? How is that going to help me or
everything hinges on that.
Exactly.
Really.
But I think one of the things we need to really discuss and put it in terms that the average Bahamian can understand. And I don't mean that in a condescending way. I mean, because before I became involved with the Coalition for Responsible Taxation, and we understood that we can't just delay that and decrease the amount. We can't just increase our collection of taxes. We also have to look at how we're spending, right? And so we also have to have fiscal responsibility in place and accountability for how we're spending those funds. So, that's where Organization for Responsible Governance has picked back up, is where the coalition left off, because we got the first part right. We were able to do that with the government, to dialogue with the government. And that's the other important fact, is that we're not the end all be all of we're not looking to take over the government. We're not looking to fight the government. We have no political aspirations whatsoever.
Yes,
right?
I understand.
Not I.
May I repeat that for all? This is an apolitical group, and we saw what worked with the Coalition for Responsible Taxation is that we were able to work with the government, dialogue with the government, have a seat at the table with the government, and say, look, we're here to help. You know, we were able to commission an economic report. You know, so let's work at this together
Well,
and not be fighting.
let's talk about some of those things as we continue here this afternoon. But the thing is, I know that you're apolitical, and you know, you want to go nowhere close to anything that sounds political, and so I understand that. But the point is this: how do we, in this day and time, with all that is going on, without you know, there's an attitude in the country today that we don't have to be accountable, and this is generally speaking, straight across the board, church, state, politicians, and all kinds of people. We don't have to be accountable. We don't have to do any number of things because we can get away with it because people are not going to hold us. You talked about making sure we hold people's feet to the fire in a way of forcing accountability. But here it is, Matthew, we're talking today where the disclosure for the parliament is just passed. Everybody didn't disclose, and perhaps 5% disclosed. There's no one crying out about it. There are people who may be quiet. They don't. Maybe we don't see the importance of that. But this is the crux of the matter. I'm saying there's an attitude that's prevalent in the Bahamas where we don't have to do this because, you know, we run things. We don't have to do this. But if you're looking at governance as a whole, making sure that private sector is working in partnership with public sector to make sure that we can get the requisite monies collected for revenue, that people can assist in paying their taxes, that government is going to go there and collect the requisite taxes so that we don't have these fellas from Moody's or Standards & Poor's telling us, now look, you know, we don't need that to happen. But people are not leading by example in many regards. They're not disclosing. That's the parliament. Those guys are not disclosing. We're doing things that are just untoward. That's not good for business practice. And you know some of the current affairs that are happening in the House of Assembly with laying things on the table with emails and all that. Not that I want to get you there. I'm just trying to show you. This is our dilemma. Absolutely. I don't know how the organization is going to be able to be sustainable if we don't face these issues. That's why I asked you earlier, should we look at where the faults are and discuss them a little bit, because there must be some things that we have to do.
And there's you hit the nail on the head on so many points there. When you see the headlines the last couple of days, you see, you know, whether it be the disregard for the Public Disclosures Act, but deeper than that, if you read through some of the articles, you also see that the structures underneath them aren't built to be very responsive. So everyone in the Bahamas is dissatisfied, and you talk to the person on the street, you go over the hill, you go out west, you go out down south, and everybody will tell you they're not happy with it. But it becomes a point of almost saturation. So what am I to do? And when you look at our country right now, so many of us are in crisis. I grew up in very poor neighborhoods, and people of color everywhere face this challenge of having so many pressures on them, you know, living in an environment that doesn't reflect what you want or what you need, and you have to struggle on a day-to-day basis. That was an issue that was somewhat central because it hit everybody's pocket. But what about everything that we're talking about that requires things like education and investment in education, and a focus on making sure that there's accountability? Well, what we need to do, and that's why org is really here, is we need to educate the public. Our power does not come from just marshaling around all the CSOs or the leaders of corporate. We have to bring this out to everybody. We need to have folks in Grantstown and Bainstown. We have to have people in Elizabeth Estates understand that on a day-to-day basis, it does matter that my government is accountable, that there is a respect for rule of law, that I know where my money that my taxes are going to pay for is spent, that decisions that apply box me out of a job or don't box me out of a job, but there should be an understanding of what goes on with our country, because that will plug people back into it. So we have to create avenues for action.
Yeah. You wanted to add to that. I saw you started to say something, no?
Oh gosh, I don't know where I start with that.
You don't have to. I'm just saying, see, a lot of people, the way that we see it, when we have these organizations like Organization for Responsible Governance, you were correct in saying, no, we're not here to take away anything, because people can get that impression that, oh, here comes this big lobby group. They're from the private sector. They've got some agenda. They want to do this. They want to do that. And I know that it's bigger than that because I spoke with some members of it, and I see that you are open to so many people, all a cross section of people. Talk to me about why the organization is well, we already know why it's important, but who are some of the people that are part of the organization? Where are some of those areas that you're looking at in recruiting and making sure that people are locking in and joining hands? What are we looking at?
Well, we first and foremost start with looking to our fellow CSOs. There are a lot of organizations that have been long at this fight. You see Citizens for a Better Bahamas, you see We the People, you see Civil Society Bahamas, Nassau Institute, people who've been giving themselves as volunteers and committing time to go forward and make these issues prominent. So we brought them together as a think tank because we wanted to make sure that we were on the right track and that we had agreement that these were the central issues. And what we came away with, we were validated and that everybody agreed these are the three critical issues we need to. So we neither condemn nor condone any organization's particular agenda, and we want to support that. But on central things like pushing forward a Freedom of Information Act, we all want to work together. And so immediately we have an action right now. We saw as the public consultation effort of the Freedom of Information Bill that the government had put together was called, I think, on a Wednesday with a series of meetings that were going to begin the following Monday and throughout the next couple of weeks. We went to the first consultation, and it was at COB, and the presentation was wonderfully done and thought through. Unfortunately, there were about 18 people there. And we realized as we looked around that was not sufficient to say that this was that. And we looked back at how it was presented and what it was presented, and it was not, neither was it clear nor open nor available for the general public. And in instance, each island was having a meeting. So we asked if, in fact, we thought that maybe there should be another meeting in Nassau, and the commission said they would look into it, and we hadn't heard back from them. So we said, let's put together and see if we can create a forum where we can bring the talent of these CSOs together to provide an open forum. So on May 5th, which is a Thursday night, from 6:30 to 8:30, we are going to have a public meeting, a public education forum on FOIA. We're getting the support of the Citizens for a Better Bahamas, Lamarck Campbell and his crew that have put together recommendations on this bill and has been around for the last year to lead a discussion on what are the recommendations around this bill. We've invited the commission to come and do their presentation because we really feel like it's important for them for not only the government, for the public to hear what they have to say, but that they to hear what the public is interested in. We're asking the Bahamas Bar Association to also talk a little bit about what is freedom of information and why is it valuable to people in their day-to-day lives. And we want people to come together and be able to make decisions for themselves. We don't have a particular set of recommendations that we say we endorse and this is what it is. We want to make sure that this piece of legislation is strong, that it holds up, that it guides our actions going forward, that people don't understand, as has been alluded to, that it means that every bit of their own personal information now has to go out there. Neither do they have access to every bit of personal information from the government. There are reasons why you would keep information clear and private, but that there's something that is fair, that it's equitable, and it's participatory. So we're putting together this as a beginning of what we see our role to be going forward, a facilitator, a collaborator, and a group of public education efforts.
So the idea is catching on, and there are people who are looking to be involved. This is good. Media is involved, I take it, and you're going to be moving around talking about this as much as you can, especially in promotion this May 5th meeting. Where's it going to be?
It'll be at the Dundas Center.
At the Dundas Center, okay. Yes. And of course, there's so many things. As I think of what you all are doing, this is commendable. I think that we ought to have had a group like this long time, and I like the fact that you're bringing in everybody. There's not stopping anyone from doing their thing, but you're collaborating on any number of issues. This is very important. Now, that's a good start. That's a good start. But Lana, as I look at this, I'm thinking, boy, there's so many things to be done. We are overwhelmed. The public is overwhelmed, Matthew. There's no question. If you did talk radio with me every day, you'd have people call and they say, look, we can't get the dump from being on fire. We sick from that. We can't get nothing done at the banks. The banks, they're taxing us so much. We're being taxed because of value-added tax. We can't afford it. Now, value-added tax is a good thing and is necessary. And we understand that. The implementation and all that, we have many questions about it. But, it is what it is at this time. But the truth be told, people, even after a year plus, have not gotten used to the idea of this type of taxation. It's something so very new, even though you can say, well, y'all always go to Miami, blah, blah, blah. But people really, the average everyday folk, feel that this is a serious burden on them. They're mad. They're angry. They don't like it. There has to be education as to why this must be. And the government is not really. The present administration and previous administrations have not really been doing a good job of facilitating the education that people need. We got now, I'm just trying to give you a picture of how overwhelming this is. And in light of what you're trying to do, you are walking up a hill, and it's a slippery hill, and you don't have anything, no cleats on your shoes. You're sliding back down in many regards. Here's another problem. You got a situation, Matthew and Lana, where the people are now being inundated with a lot of agendas because we're getting close to the end of a term.
Yeah.
and the government wants to get their agendas through, and you can't blame them. They want to be able to say that we've accomplished these things. But you've got that. They're overwhelmed with that. They're overwhelmed with the fact that they still are not working yet in many regards. Many have gotten laid off. The prospects of jobs is not what it ought to be. You are bringing about this organization at a time when we are really at a crossroad in a lot of things. The economy is shot. We're not where we ought to be. The attitudes of people is not what it ought to be. This whole thing about the service industry is not what we really looking for. We know we can do better because we've got natural talent to do it, but it's not happening. And then, of course, you've got the crime, that we cannot forget that animal in the room, that monster. And then we've got the problems of migration.
Yeah.
In many regards. And immigration can be a wonderful thing if we know what we're doing. And it works for most countries, most industrialized countries. It works well. But the trouble is we have a helter-skelter approach, and it seems, and some people have rightly or wrongly accused the government of just having this kind of policy to collect some monies for work permits. I don't think that's true, but that is how people perceive it. All of these things are what we're looking at that causes us not to move forward in a cohesive effort, in solidarity to get some things done. So the beautiful work that you are doing, Matt and Denicio Diagla and Lana and so many other people, sometimes can be overwhelmed by the abundance of problems that we are now facing. How do you speak through that to the average person that they may get involved and say, let's have a beginning point. Let's get something done. The classic example, Matt, is really that hurricane. That was beautiful. I can't forget that, because I saw people just come and do things. I saw Lana say, Steve, I need you to help me. I saw Matt over this way. I saw all kinds of people doing all kinds of things. This was good. But you see, at the end of the day, we are so inspired by the politicians and the legislators that if they're not up front, it looks as if these are some people doing foolery. Who these people is?
Right.
You see the point? So I'm saying, against that backdrop, how do we penetrate that to get a message out that this is a most important step, and this will incorporate all of these problems and all of these dilemmas that we face, but we've got to come together in a common stand to say, let's see what the best practice could be. Can we talk about that?
Yeah, I think, and you said so much of what is behind our organization. And I think that there's only one real simple answer towards that, is we have to keep going forward and keep our eyes on the prize. We ourselves can get distracted. Too many things coming up at different times. And so where we try and work is we find the least common denominator. We want to find what is central. So all those organizations, the ones that are working on the environment, the ones that are working on helping our citizens, the ones that are addressing issues in the correctional system, or those that are addressing issues of crime in the communities, it all boils down to some central things. And we see the freedom of information being one of those. We see key education endeavors being part of those. We see economic development. So those folks in the community, one, we want to make sure those kids that are coming out are not coming out with that D average or that D&E average, that once we inspire and put systems in place that can foster using technology, their education, then that they have places to go and work, that we've then connected the business community, and it has to happen in parallel, that there are places they can go and work, so that when they come out and they ask a question of why does it matter that I know whether my legislator is rooted in the issues that are facing my community, is not based on a party issue. It's much more based on where their answer is. Are they going to move this forward? Does this mean that my kids are going to do better? Does it mean that my community is going to be safer? Does it mean that there's going to be better opportunities for us going forward? So what we see is through partnership, bringing groups together, individuals. We welcome all individuals, and focusing them on very specific tasks. So we're building out a committee that's going to focus on accountability. The first act is this Freedom of Information Act. Next will be fiscal responsibility. Going from there, we're working on a civil society bill as well with Civil Society Bahamas to make sure that civil society is a part of it. When you look at sustainable communities and nations, you have almost, if you look at a pie, you have 3 sections of that pie that are relatively about the same in terms of influence and impact. And one of those is the corporate sector. And one of those, honestly, is civil society. Those groups that are not motivated by either profit or the structure of government. And then the other is government. Government has a very strong place in it.
Absolutely.
When we look at the pie that is the Bahamas, the proportion of those slices is much different. And so we have to rally around civil society. There are so many different organizations. I prior to this, I ran the Bahamar Foundation, and I had the benefit as a funder to see all the different work in the communities. And there are so many. There's a myriad of wonderful organizations, but they haven't been rallied together as a sector. They don't understand how big and how powerful they can be, and how they can be the conduit to our citizenry. So we have to help and bolster them, and we have to build not only their confidence or their capacity, but also their connection to our particular causes. So if we all act on those steps, if we say, all right, here's what we focus on accountability, those groups that are specific to that, they can help to not only drive the agenda, set the specific activities, but we can do so in a committee that focuses on education, and one that focuses on economic development by bringing leaders together across the Bahamas that say, what are the new investment areas? Where are the policies that need to be in place so that we know that contract dispersal is fair and equitable, so that we know that our employees are going to be presented as ready to work once those opportunities are created.
Understood. And you're talking not Nassau-centric, not Grand Bahama-centric. You're talking the Bahamas.
The entire archipelago.
We are talking with Matthew Aubrey, and of course, he's the executive director of the Organization for Responsible Governance. And this is basically a new organization that is doing a lot of things to make sure that we can get the things that we want and the kind of country that we want. You ought to get involved, and we'll tell you how you can get involved. They're looking for all hands to be on deck, because this is something that's really powered by people. People will power this. The people are people like you in your neck of the woods, in your organizations, and you ought to tap into this, because at the end of the day, you hear me say every day, we want to build a country. We have the ingredients of what we need to build a country. Now we're going to put a structure in place and put some flesh on that structure. And how do we do that? We're going to do that by what you are going to do in your neck of the woods and what you bring to the table to make sure that we can organize ourselves in this country to get things done. That's the whole idea. Lana Lee Brogdon is also with me today, and of course she's the president of New Oriental Laundry and Cleaners, a family-owned business, now in its 55th year, with 9 locations throughout Nassau. You heard me do those commercials before, right? Yes. So that's the same organization. Beautiful lady. She's the co-founder and counselor of the Organization for Responsible Governance, and a lot of other people are involved in that. We'll tell you who some of those are. You've heard me open today with Juan Dionisio de Aguilar, a brilliant young man who's done a whole lot of things and a lot of good in developing his own businesses. And I think he has the respect of so many people here in the country. When Dionisio de Aguilar speaks, a lot of people listen, even if they play like they're listening. We've got calls on the line, 325-023516. You can call me if you want and get involved in this discussion. What are the things that concern you is perhaps how you can contribute. What are those areas that really concern you? What are the things that you would like this organization also to include in its many think tank episodes where they're having? What are some of those things that should be on the agenda? They have a whole long list of a wonderful agenda, from stable government and adherence to the rule of law, to make sure that we can rub out corruption and the ease of doing business. I know this is something great for a lot of people over the hill and above the hill and by the hill, because they say Bahamians don't get that kind of treatment in the ease of doing business, and that foreign investors get it. But we are promoting today an idea where we can work hand in hand to make sure that all things are equal, as Lana said, that there's fairness in the system. Consumer spending, how important is that to you? Saving within the public and private sector, savings. You know, we don't save, do we? There's a lot of things that we don't do. The national fiscal stability, you know, the debt versus surplus reserves. What are we doing? Are we in good shape from a foreign dollar point of view? Are we in good shape? How are things going in that area? Are we spending our monies right? Is the government allocating the kind of things that they ought to be allocating monies for? There's so many things that I know that you have interest in. Get involved in the conversation today. 325-023516, 325-024-2043, 325-025-2053. Good afternoon, Hard Copy. How are you?
Good afternoon, Steve. How you doing, my brother?
Yes, this is John.
Yes, it is.
John,
yes, it is.
How you doing today?
I'm very good. I'm very good. Just sitting with a very good friend of mine in Lonely.
Yes.
And I have not yet met Mark, not in this capacity.
Matthew, yeah.
Matthew, forgive me.
Yeah.
But I have sat with Lana and other members of ORG, Steve. And I wanted to just call and give my personal endorsement to the effort that they're making. What Lana and others are all about. As they say, totally apolitical. And it is time for us. As you know, I'm constantly crying for the citizenry to get involved, for civil society to step up and reach across and partner with the government. I've had my own personal experiences with that recently with the hurricane relief efforts. And coming out of that, another one of these organizations was founded along myself and Diane Phillips and Edison Sumner and others from Rotary came together and we did Rebuild Bahamas, which is, again, another similar organization. And so the thought that they have had to try and create an umbrella organization in org that would pull together and somehow harness all of this activity that's going on and focus it and like laser beam it in directions where people have common ground so that we can really get some things achieved. As you know, you and I have been going through my national plan, and its principle, its founding principle is public-private partnerships.
Yes.
ORG is a public-private partnership on steroids.
Can we trademark that?
Okay. So I lended my full support. I've been doing some things quietly to assist, and I am available to assist even more so. This recent review of the Freedom of Information Act, Steve, you and I will have to have a real pointed conversation on that. When we get into it, sections 3 and 4 of that act make the rest of it worthless.
Wow.
And it's a beautiful piece of legislation, but for sections 3 and 4 that make the whole thing a farce. And I can say that as strongly as that. I don't think Lana would say that that's strong, but it does make the whole thing a waste of paper.
So that means that we've got to go back at it and give them the kind of ideas to give the thing some teeth so that we can be serious about it. So no watered down version of something. We need real McCoy stuff these days.
It's also promoting the discussion and dialogue around it, because it's right now it's a one-way direction. So we put input in, but there's no clarity as to what they're going to take or why they're going to take a comment or a recommendation. It will just then all subsequently be presented to Parliament, and they'll decide what they want. One of our positions is that it needs to be a more open and participatory process, so that we have lots of expertise in this, Mr. Bachos, lots of expertise in this country that should have a go at what this legislation is, and we can come out with something very strong, something that will stack up in the best of the world. We have the opportunity to draw from things that have been put in place in countries all over the world and been mean tested. Let's adopt some of those pieces.
Understood. So, John, we got a lot of work to do, eh?
We have a lot of work to do, Steve. And, you know, I only wish that, although it has been around for a minute, I wish it was more active, for example, with this referendum that's coming up right now. And as it is, trying to get out ahead of the freedom of information situation, because the truth is that the real debate has finally started with the referendum, but it has started amongst civil society. It has started on your show, Steve. It started as you and I and others go through and bring things to light. Really too late for the debate on that. The questions are formed. All right. We are having the debate that should have happened in Parliament. So hopefully ORG can push the issue with the freedom of information before the final
we got to get out in front of it,
table and debate it. Because if they debate what is there, it will be a waste of time.
Understood.
So like Matthew said just now, we don't need more pieces of legislation that are lip service, not just to us, but lip service to the international organizations that are pushing for us to move forward with things like gender equality, freedom of information, and other matters. So when you look at it, and then again, Matthew, if you take my point, sections 3 and sections 4, they detail what is exempted or what can be exempted.
Yeah.
And what can be exempted, Steve, is so wide as to whatever the minister in control of information determines is to be exempted.
My Lord.
By case basis.
Yeah.
So when I read that, I said, this is a joke.
Yeah.
And the other things that can be exempted is anything of a financial matter and anything of a contractual matter.
There goes the neighborhood.
Comes out of national. So basically, what else does government do but spend our money on our behalf? So everything that government does is really of a financial matter.
Yes.
So what is the act for? As far as I'm concerned, it's a waste of paper unless they address those fundamental issues before it hits the floor of the House for debate.
Well, you know, we got to get out in front of it. Tomorrow's a good time to do that. We begin the process in earnest then.
Well, definitely look forward to it. And I give all of my support, congratulations, encouragement. Everything I can do for org will be done. And I encourage everybody else to support such efforts.
Thanks, John. I appreciate your call.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
All right, John Boston calling in today. There's so many things to be done. Organization for Responsible Government. I like this thing, fighting for a brighter Bahamas. And that means that we are in it for the long run. We're going to try to change the paradigm, get some things done. And that's why I asked Matt earlier about the attitudes of people. I mean, are you being encouraged? Do you see good signs? Is this an encouraging thing? Because people are so overwhelmed with so many things. They're almost like in all different directions, and it can be crazy. And that's why I asked you about the enthusiasm level of those who are involved.
It is amazing because Bahamians are tremendously passionate. And we've seen it, as I said, in most recent instance with the VAT effort where people from all levels of community, both all socioeconomic groups were involved and had input and had say so, and were part of that conversation, and the hurricane. You and I both know that there were folks from every community who stepped up, people who were in crisis themselves. So when people see a need, they're able to do so and step up. So I think it's going to be up to us and the other organizations to be able to recognize that we are in the pending crisis here. That without action, we will roll down a hill that we can't get back up without a lot more effort. So this is a critical time, and what we're going to be doing going forward from these committees is we'll be doing public education campaigns, carrying information out to the community so that they understand not only the pieces of legislation and the policies that are in place, but other actions that they can be a part of. What we see is a lot of folks will take umbrage to something or talk about it, but they don't know what to do about it. So it's up to us to create those paths. We do see things like the gender equality referendum and other things that are in place. And our goal, our task is going to have to be keep as razor sharp as possible. Where are we on focus to get certain things done? And then move forward to another act, and then move forward to another act. What we see in terms of this season, although there is a lot of messaging going on and there's a lot that is hitting the public right now, we also see it as a critical time to educate folks about their participation in the political realm and process. Yes. So what we see is we want to make sure that there's a litany of platforms that are presented, and we understand our candidates' positions on those platforms. So we see ourselves having candidate and public servant report cards. Where do people stand on something? Have they said to this? Have they taken a pledge on integrity? Where do they stand on the environment? Where do they stand on critical issues that do mean something on a day-to-day basis? Absolutely. So that instead of just deciding, which party I'm in or what I'm told, that people will be making a more critical decision about who
got to be with
represents them.
substance. Yeah, got to be with substance, and so that's a good thing as we talk about it. Well, listen, we want to run to the break. We're going to take some more calls when we come back from the break, and let's get into some other areas of the great ambition. I know I meant to start out that way because we know that we're not foolish. We know that there's a lot of work to be done, and we know the things that we face, and I wanted to bring that and amplify that for people to know that yes, they're on top of it. They know that in this environment that we're in now, it may not be conducive in some people's way of thinking to do what we are trying to do in this organization, the Organization for Responsible Governance. But we have to begin. I'm happy to see that it's organized, it's beginning, it's catching fire, it's moving, and it's a living thing that's happening. And obviously, more people are going to join in and bring their expertise to the whole shebang as well. And what is good about this is that it seems like it's going to be uniting people because, in the past, people have said, well, these folks this way, they don't really talk to the folks that way. And so we're separated. And then there's an economic gulf between us because they have all the money and this doesn't have no money and all that kind of
The
stuff. And
resources are not shared.
that's
and-
correct.
yeah.
That's correct. And
So
the same
everyone
people are
trying to do
being
their own
targeted
thing.
for to help to, buttress the financial aspect of keeping these organizations going. So I believe that this is coming in a way at a good time to bring people together and that it's not lost on the organization, that we've got to talk about the topical issues and get a focus for the people on these issues. Like right now, this dump thing is a major concern. I was particularly impressed to see the amount of people from across the Bahamas, from all sectors, white and black, Bahamian, Chinese, blue and purple, everybody down there saying, look, this dump is not a good thing. We've got to do something. And if
That's
we
because
can,
the wind blows all directions.
that's right. and if we can come together on those things, it means then that we're cultivating an attitude of reach out and touch. Let's make the world a better place if we can. We saw it with the hurricane. We're going to see that on many other issues. I suppose you'll see it on this gender equality bill. As John said, though, we are almost coming up the rear. They've already passed things in Parliament. You have to get in the front of this proposed amendment for the presentation for the Freedom of Information to make sure that you can help to shape what that's going to be. And that's very important. Go ahead, Lana.
Yeah, no, we don't want another bill or another act that has no teeth.
Yeah.
And that's just going to be,
Piling
we
of
talked
paper.
about the Public Disclosure Commission.
Yes.
Somebody appointed by the Prime Minister.
Yeah.
You have to have an independent, body appoint these these people that are going to be responsible for evenly enforcing the law, even if it is a minister of parliament.
Yeah.
Otherwise, we're going to have a Freedom of Information bill that is going to be the same thing like the public disclosures. We're going to have an information commissioner.
Ombudsman. Do you think
a watchdog?
that are we looking in that direction? And what are your thoughts along those lines of an ombudsman that can really, make sure that it's separate and apart, but getting things done and is accountable to the entire nation?
In the current legislation, they propose what's called an information officer that would serve in what we would equate to an ombudsman. What Lana represents is that in the presentation, the government's commission talked about the fact that person who would be salaried at about the same level as a judge. So there is some weight behind what they're bringing, but that person would be appointed by the Prime Minister in consultation with the leadership of the opposition, and ultimately would be responsible. Would be appointed by the Governor General, but would be responsible to Parliament. So inherently, it doesn't speak to an independence or a separateness or that comfort. People know that there's an even-handedness.
We've got to decentralize. There's a lot of things. That's what the problem has been, choking the Bahamas all over the decades. It is the control of central government and not decentralizing it and not finding independent people to do things, even in the local government kind of attitude, that concept. It should have been in NASA a long time, but that's another story. And they won't have me debate that because, but let's take a call before the break. Hard copy, how are you?
Hello?
Yes, sir.
Good evening, Mr. McKinney.
Yes, sir. I'm listening.
Good evening to your guests as well.
Good evening.
I think this is a historical moment in the Bahamas.
You think so, eh?
Yeah. Where now we can finally use the Bahamians who have, I think, great discipline in different sectors, help the development of those countries. But two concerning things I have to say as a young Bahamian.
Yes.
And one was the lack of a democratic process in terms of government, a more of a bureaucratic process, especially when it comes to appointing franchises for buses and taxis. People having those for years. And their generation, children's having it. It's not a pure democratic process when it comes to franchises for buses and taxis.
Who's in, stay in, who's out, stay out is almost what the situation is.
Exactly. So it's very, what I call, the money, trickling down or really cycling to much people. And then the next problem is, we in the Bahamas, we don't seem to, believe in taxing, the high income people in terms of income tax. And I think that's a process that is, unfair taxation on the poor people. So we were being taxed, to our Hampshire, but we have people making too much money and they're not being taxed. So we have to be fair.
Yeah, I hear what you're saying, and you're not wrong. And I think it's just that it's lack of knowledge and insight by successive governments who have been running the show. We've had any number of people who told governments over the years about different tax structures and even double taxation in this particular jurisdiction that can cost us to make a pretty penny. But we're not seeing that. People are taking lots of monies out of this country at a tax of about 3%, if that much. And I think that that's what it is now, since the Prime Minister made an announcement in the last budget allocation about this kind of taxation. We almost in a position where people can come and mine the whole place of the Bahamas and just go with their business with all the money. And the government of the Bahamas will have to try to find people who are experts in these areas, who know what they are doing, people who understand it, and put them out front to get it done.
Mr. McKinney, the sad part is this. You talk about government members not disclosing. The Constitution is a very basic tool that we use to help govern this country. And if they can't do the basic things right, I don't see where they can probably do anything else.
I appreciate your concern, and I thank you for your call. Thanks for your insight. Appreciate it. 325-0235 or 6. Well, we're talking today with Matthew Aubrey, and you want to talk with him because he has been doing so many things. And let me just tell you that this young man has also been a part of the Director of External Relations for Action Against Hunger and internationally renowned global humanitarian and hunger relief organization in the Bahamas. Matt has served as the Director of Community Relations and Partnership for Bahama, overseeing the Believe Foundation. Additionally, he has served as a consultant for REACH, Young Marines Explorers, the Seahorse Institute, and the Ministry of Social Services. So he is recognized as an expert in fundraising and marketing for nonprofit organizations. And this is a good thing because you need people who know what they're doing. And I suppose that they have selected a good person in this. And there's a whole big group behind him and Lana. And they're all working together for a common cause. That is to build a better Bahamas. And that involves you. Do not feel as if these are some fellas way up so. They are on the ground. Matthew been all back down and being down and Dog Flea Alley and all that kind of stuff, looking for things to said to them people in Long Island and other places. So feel free to talk with him today and with Lana, who in fact, Lana has been around so long. She knows all these places, but she's a young lady. But when I say around so long, she's been here all of her life doing everything. Born Bahamian here in this country, and she's done so many things here. Have been running the family business for so long. She know most of you all anyhow. And go to New Oriental and all that. So feel free. What you want to do is you want to get involved and talk about the things that you are expecting from the Organization for Responsible Governance and how you can play an active role, all right? So get involved, and when we come back from the break, we'll talk some more. You can go and follow us on Instagram right now on Hard Copy 242, like us on Facebook, Hard Copy, and you can also go and see us right now. We're live streaming on Google+. And the one who's waving right now, that's me. Hey, and we're back in just a minute after these words. This is Hard Copy.
Want a better financial future? Seize the day. Is it crazy to think about retirement when you're this young? C-File says it would be crazy not to think about it. Seize the day. Make your future happen now. Set goals, build wealth, and create the life of your dreams. C-File can get you started. Visit cfile.com to find a savings or investment plan right for you. C-File. Seize your future.
At Ron's Electric Motors, they repair and rewind all major brands of electric motors, including water pumps, generators, and the generator's back end, welding machines, electric lifts, air compressors, battery chargers, and more. They're equipped to handle up to 850 kilowatts and rewind up to 450 horsepower motors. They're conveniently located on the corner of Wolf and Clarence Roads and are open weekdays 8 a.m. to 5 p.m., Saturdays till noon. They offer 24 hours emergency assistance. You can reach them at 242-356-0249.
The best insurance in town is Advantage Insurance on Collins Avenue. They are simply the best because they provide easy, affordable insurance rates for home, car, business, or whatever is valuable or important to you. Advantage Insurance and Brokers, 61 Collins Avenue, is the fastest, most progressive insurance company in the Bahamas because they really take care of you by making insurance totally affordable. Call them now at 356-0285 or 6 or email them at info@advantagebahamas.com.
Executive Printers. We're professionals. At Executive Printers, we do not participate in trash talk. We concern ourselves with the accuracy and security of your laser check. That is why we put 15 securities on your laser checks. This is not trash. This is fact. It makes fraud almost impossible. Call us today at Executive Printers at 393-5011 or email us at sales@epbahamas.com. That's sales@epbahamas.com. Executive Printers. Laser checks. We do them right.
One loan.
One low payment.
That's right. Commonwealth Bank is here to help you consolidate and save. Once your loan is booked, you will receive a $100 gift card and automatically enter to win $5,000 cash. Not only can you get one low payment to help you breathe easier, but you could win $5,000 cash.
Our debt consolidation loans help you get more.
Commonwealth Bank, leader in personal banking services.
Amp up the music, soak up the culture, turn up the vibes. All roads for the ultimate carnival experience lead to the Cultural Village on May 5th through 7th, where you can soak up the culture with delicious Bahamian food, music and art. Amp up the music at the Music Masters Competition and Mega Concert featuring Bahamian and international artists. And come turn up the vibes at the Road Fever Street Party, where you can jump and wine in your costumes. For pricing and more information, check us out, BahamasJunkanoCarnival.com. Bahamas Junkano Carnival, brought to you by BTC.
Mommy, what does comprehensive mean?
It's when you include everything, not just some things. Why?
I'm reading it on your Facebook page. Your friend Kalina has comprehensive health coverage.
Let me see that. Comprehensive health coverage that includes primary and specialist care, hospitalization, surgical services, overseas care, and rehabilitative services.
So they didn't leave anything out?
They sure didn't. Kalina really is my friend.
Talk to Kalina about comprehensive health coverage that won't leave you exposed. Visit kalina.com or find us on Facebook.
Birthdays, weddings, christenings, Christmas, all these days have one thing in common. They are special. Well, with great savings throughout, every day is special at Super Value and Quality Supermarkets. Kraft macaroni and cheese, a 7 1/4 ounce box, $1.09. Western vegetable or corn oil, 28 ounce, $3.99. Bluebird juice, selective flavors, the 11 1/2 ounce size, 89 cents. Danish spare ribs, $2.39 per pound. Red Globe grapes, $1.49 per pound. Celebrate by Bahamian Month at Super Value and Quality Supermarkets.
How the exercise going?
Not too good.
What happened?
Well, you know, Mr. Junior make me one treadmill.
Make?
You know how he like tinker. Anyhow, he built this treadmill and he hook it up to one of them clothesline, which you could spin. You know the kind what I mean?
You made a one would look like the upside down umbrella?
That's the one. He figure that since I was working out, I just power up one of them clothesline. So he hook it up direct to the treadmill.
Oh, so whilst you're walking, clothes spinning. Makes sense to me.
Makes sense to you, eh? You know how heavy that clothes is? But anyhow, I right there struggling to get the treadmill going. Slow. She start to go now. The treadmill going and the clothes spinning. This time now I building up speed. I running now. I running. The clothes spinning fast now.
You're flying now.
Yes, and so was the clothes. You would have thought he had enough sense to screw the thing down, eh?
The clothes going?
I see where they lying yet.
So what you gonna do?
Go back to Superwash where I should have gone in the first beginning.
Superwash. It washes your presses and cleans you 24/7.
Let's go. Hey! Remember when Granny said by save some for a rainy day? Living for paycheck to paycheck, you live in the worst way. Plan your future goals with B.O.B. Your future is bright. And you can buy that car, save regularly. Your future's bright. There you Working hard at house, your future's bright. I see you in your business, yeah. Here's what you need to do. So a little reap a lot higher interest from BOB. Go BOB, your bank of solutions.
At Henry F. Store Electric Company, we supply all your electric needs for any size project, from residential housing to luxury hotels. We can help you achieve just the right look, from doorbells to chandeliers, table lamps to ceiling fans, wire, conduit, panels, dimmers, switches, plugs, and even tools. And don't forget light bulbs. We have those hard-to-find energy-saving fluorescent bulbs and more. Henry F. Store Electric, number 135 Mackey Street. Over 50 years of reliability, service, and low prices. We also ship to the Family Islands.
Attention Honda and Acura drivers, your vehicle may need immediate attention. There is currently a recall underway to repair airbag inflators at no cost to you in certain 2001 to 2014 Honda vehicles and 2002 to 2006 Acura vehicles. Please check the recall status of your vehicle by visiting or calling Nassau Motor Company on Shirley Street at 242-302-0130, extension 2227. Nassau Motor Company, the authorized Honda dealer in the Bahamas to have your vehicle serviced.
Commonwealth Bank, the leader in personal banking services, is giving you more convenient, reliable, and personal banking solutions. And now, full-service Saturday banking at its Wolf Road branch. That's right, 7 Saturday banking locations to better serve you. Commonwealth Bank Plaza branch, Mackey Street, Oaksfield branch, Prince Charles Drive branch, Golden Gates branch, the Mall Drive branch, Freeport Grand Bahama, and now Wolf Road branch. Commonwealth Bank is open 6 days a week to better serve you, and every Saturday, 10 a.m. to 1 p.m. Commonwealth Bank, leader in personal banking services.
When I fly with Sky. Sky Bahamas. When I fly with Sky. Sky Bahamas. The plane them spanking clean. The pilots their voice red. They fly you out on time. They flight attendants red. Service is their passion. With you they take good care. Safety is their culture. Yes, they'll get you there. When I fly.
Fly with us to Fort Lauderdale or the beautiful Bahama Islands. Book today at 702-2600 or visit our website at skybahamas.net and experience Sky.
There's no other talk show like the show. If it's 5 o'clock, it's hard copy.
Welcome back to Hard Copy 17 on the downside of the hour. We're talking today about Organization for Responsible Governance. You'll be hearing a whole lot more. They're just getting started, and they're about making sure that we can fight for a brighter Bahamas, and they want the involvement of all people. And you can get involved today. I'm talking with the executive director of the organization, Mr. Matthew Aubrey, and of course his able assistant and the co-founder.
My boss.
His able assistant in this case, but the boss overall. You know, Lana don't be no bless unless she's the boss. You know that, right? But we're talking with Lana Lee Brogdon as well. She's here with me this afternoon, and we're having a good little discussion, trying to get to whet your appetite, really, what the organization is about, how you could get involved, and the many things that they have been given charge to go and seek out and bring some kind of structure to what we are doing. And it may sound all complicated and all that, but really it isn't. All it is really is that we have an organization that's promoting the concept of responsible governance. They are apolitical, meaning that they have no political affiliation. There's not a political party, so don't think like that. You have to think as a Bahamian now who want to build a country. Just what we've been talking about all these years. How do we build a country? How do we cause for things to happen, as I say every day in my opening of the show, that we want a country that can feed and sustain itself. We want a country that, with a brilliant visionary action plan, ready to embrace a future of hope and prosperity. That we want to find like-minded Bahamians, intelligent conversation, honest contributions, that we can go and do something. And because we've got jobs, an industry to create, we've got a people to inspire and empower, and generations of born and unborn Bahamians, we the people must protect and plan for. If you believe in that, that's how you want to get involved in the organization, because you will be a part of think tanks. You will get to make your contribution. What you have to say will be documented to the point where it speaks volumes in any presentation going to any organization or any entity like government or civil society or private sector businesses, and you'll get to say something. And that's important. It's people's power at work in an organization that's now been formulated, And so we're asking you to be a part of it. 325-023546 is how you can call me today. You can also send me a text or a WhatsApp at 376-9234. Aren't you interested in how you can become a part of this? Let's ask Matthew to give us the rundown on that, because being a partner in this and being a part of it is how you're going to get your feet on the ground and get your say finally and make it count. Matthew.
Thank you. Well, we want people to join us at the Organization for Responsible Governance. We'd like you to join us online. You can find us at www.orgbahamas.com, orgbahamas.com. You can join online, give us your email information and sign aboard so we can get you information about upcoming events and information and make sure that you're informed about what's going forward. You can find us on Facebook at Org Bahamas Foundation. You can check us out on Twitter at #SpeakUp242. And you can give me a call at 242-477-3134 or email me at maubrey@orgbahamas.com. We want and welcome all input. We are Power of the People, and I think you said that so well, Steve. Mm-hmm. We also, though, we have some core beliefs. We believe that Bahamians must understand the core issues that are holding the country back. We believe that we must stand united around the need for good governance. Mm-hmm. And by good governance, we talk about it being consensus-oriented, participatory, accountable, that it follows the rule of law, that it's transparent, that it's effective and efficient, that it's equitable and inclusive. Everybody has a right to be a part of this, and that it's responsive. What we think we have is a lot of folks who are upset or dissatisfied, but once you've said something, it kind of goes into the abyss. Yeah, we need to have a focus to say that your voice matters. We don't do this arbitrarily, and our policies aren't driven from just what we come up in our mind. We try and use references. We were having a discussion during the break, and you talked about the critical need for having documentation, for having some reference point that you're building on. So we draw upon established best practices, both internationally and locally, and we also look to promote research going forward so that we better understand these issues and we can come up with a logical, means-tested, efficient way to move forward.
Yeah, and I was about to ask yourself and Lana about this concept of best practices. Now, we always hear, and over the years, I've heard politicians talk about, we want to do this because the best practice of a particular jurisdiction is this. And then when you really do the scales, you see that their population is 16 times ours or whatever it is, or 2 times less, or it's just not a comparative analysis that we can say, okay, the best practice here, or the attitude of people may be that we got a great work ethic in this country, as opposed to, do we have a great work ethic in the Bahamas? And so when you talk about wanting to implement something based upon the information that is available, and when you compare the information, you see that, we way down here when it comes to service. This country that we're getting the best practice from is over here, and there's a reason why they may have a best practice and a workable solution for what they're doing, because the people are into it. If our people are not into it, if they are not interested in providing the service or smiling or whatever it is that we require, then how do we go about measuring these best practices? And I say, over the years, so many politicians have been using that just as, talking pieces. Well, the best practice is this, so we're going to do this here. And it may not be the best thing to do for us because they've not considered the demographics, the attitude of people, the work ethics, that kind of thing. And so what are best practices? I mean, when we look at this, what should be the yardstick when we are kind of like, transforming or transposing or transferring somebody else's idea into our jurisdiction?
I think and as you were talking before about how, your show is fact-based and you don't talk about anything until you have it in print in front of you, right? That's the same way that org is going to work. We're going to, and that's where our fundraising comes in, is we need money to fund these researches, right? We can't just say Oxford Economics, hey, come on down.
You're going to need money. You're going to need the research on it alone is money. Yeah. The research, yeah.
So, thorough research and to back what the best practices that will work here. Like you're saying, we could, we may look at Mexico for how their freedom of information worked, but is that going to work here, in our circumstances? And we will take those best practices, that research, and the best practices for other countries in the areas of accountability, education, economic growth, which are our first areas of focus. And also, we're currently enlisting top local and international experts to serve on the committees what Matt spoke about, with the goal of developing policy papers and research that can back these papers that are going to be presented to the government.
And there's a few ingredients. My background educationally is my master's in social work targets two areas. One is the running of organizations, but the other is community organizing. And community organizing is really about how do you bring cultures together? How do you bring local contexts forward? So yes, you want to draw from best practices. You want to see what's worked. I think one great example that was at our orientation was what happened with that. So the government came up with a model for moving VAT forward, and they had a number 15%. They thought that was what it was. Well, there was a lot of debate on that. Was too high, too little, too high. And so the Coalition for Responsible Taxation, in a very neutral way, brought forward not only local economists, but international economists. And they said, let's look at places that are small island developing states. Let's look at places that have a similar path, that came out of a place where you saw a very opaque government, or you saw they didn't have a VAT and they instituted it. Let's look at what worked, what didn't work. They brought in groups like Oxford Economics, which has a international reputation for looking at the local information context. They actually are used by the Ministry of Tourism and have been forever around looking and better understanding the economic opportunities within that. And they came up with an economic model that showed that, in fact, it could be as low as, I think, 6.3%. That would actually put forward. And if what was the government was proposing, say 15% with a lot of exceptions, 6.3 with very little exceptions, actually would get us there. And then then the partnership with government existed such that they said, well, we're going to go with the 7.5, and that's what we'll move forward. But it was a rational discussion. It was one that had reason, and it was established in what really applies here in the Bahamas.
But driven by people.
Driven exactly by people, and that's the ingredient. That's the same model going forward. So we need to enlist bright minds here. Paulo Freire was an activist who worked a lot in some of the South American and Central American countries, and he recognized that you can't go faster than the folks around you. So we've got to educate people. We've got to let them know that they have a place in this and it matters. So when we look at the Freedom of Information Act as a beginning, we want people to come out next Thursday. We want them to come to the Dundas Center from 6:30 to 8:30. We want them to come and listen and learn. Why does freedom of information matter to you today? Why is making a decision or having input on this bill? And the recommendations that will be made should be coming from a lot of different places.
Absolutely.
We have legal minds like Mr. Bostwick and the Bar Association that will take it from a very legislative point. This is what has to be in place as part of a strong bill. But we also want groups that are reflective of all of our communities to say, I really want to know X. I want to know why this is there. I want to understand what is made, what decisions are made with monies that I put forward through that. And that's their right. So that these recommendations are inclusive, not just of a small group of dedicated CSOs, but of our populace, because that starts to get the groundswell going. And those are the folks that we want involved in even larger and longer term issues.
Well, let me ask you, since you mentioned VAT and all that just now, just as a side, this whole thing with VAT, do we know for a fact yet how the monies have been distributed with value-added tax? And we know that we've collected a whole lot of money, millions of dollars, and it's been going pretty good. People have been responsive. Businesses have been doing their part. No one has really gotten in any trouble. Some people have may lag behind, but they caught up that kind. And people really, the business population here knows that they have to pay this. Those who are qualified to pay the value-added tax, who make the $100,000 threshold, whatever it is now, they have been doing that. But has there been the responsive counter accountability that I know is a big thing that's driving a whole lot of stuff, because people just don't know what's happening? Have you heard what we are doing?
There's been no
Isn't that incredible, though?
accountability as to the spending of the VAT funds or any public funds for that matter, really. And we have to remember that when the New Zealand consultants came in, you know, they're actually the Coalition for Responsible Taxation that I was a part of met with them on many occasions, and through the Chamber of Commerce as well, who was also on board actually with us with the event. You know, they said, check. You know, the coalitions, they brought in the consultants, but the coalition's got it. You know, just follow their list, right? So what the problem is that we came to an agreement with the delay of that and also the reduction of the rate. But then it all stopped. And the second part of it was you have to have accountability and fiscal responsibility along with this. And, so that's the problem is that we've got.
So it opens the door for speculation
Yeah.
as to what we're doing with the money. And you know why that's a very important question, because we have some events that's going on now that really it's to enhance, I suppose, the culture. When a lot of people are saying, what culture are you talking about? And I'm talking about the Junkanoo Carnival that we see. There's been no accountability on the Junkanoo Carnival. I can tell you, I tried to get the information. There's been nothing, not from any accounting agency, even though it was promised. There's been nothing tabled in the House of Assembly. This is kind of absurd in my way of thinking, because I run a little business, and I can tell you, you need to know what the numbers are. You need to know your profit and loss. You need to know where not to go and fool around again to make that mistake. And to come back and be doing it again and just telling us, willy-nilly that maybe it's $3 million this time. We don't know, and it's all secretive again. This is not exemplary of any organization, much less the government of the Bahamas. And as a result of that, people have been speculating this. Man, they must be taking value out of tax notice. I don't think that they would do that. I would believe that they are more responsible than that. And I know that sounds political, so you don't have to comment on it. I'm just saying, people basically are wondering how we are doing what we are doing at a time when we can least afford to do so. The people who Standard & Poor's and Moody's have been stressing, tighten your belt. You've got to do better in collection revenue. You've got to stop this willy-nilly spend, this wide scale spending on buying all these cars and stuff. You got to pull it in. We don't see that. No one is saying anything, but boy, we look good. Everybody looks good in them pretty cowboy. It looks like we are really living high on the hog. But the point is, where's the money coming from?
Well,
Who's paying for that?
And that's the transparency we talk about. That's what freedom of information allows, is an understanding of the inner workings of what government is. And the reality is, this isn't one-sided. Transparency has been shown, research has shown that it makes the legislative process better for legislators. It makes those in power better able to do their jobs, to answer to their constituencies, to make decisions, to have guidelines and rules and measures by which they need to meet.
Can I ask you a question?
It flips that.
Can I ask you both a question? Do you really believe that we want to have responsible governance in the country? I know that we want them. People want that. But do you believe that those who push buttons and who are in charge of a lot of things, present, past, and those to be in the future, do you think that we want to have a system and a regiment where we have accountability and transparency? Because, it has been said that we in the Bahamas have been so corrupt for so long that, if you upset this apple cart now, the whole thing may damn well fall apart. And so the point is, I'm wondering if there's an attitude to cultivate it. Can we cultivate and is there a willingness people generally to want to bring us in line as to what we should be doing, best practices of governance around the world? Is there a level of willingness, openness about it? Because I can tell you, in every section of this country, there's perceived corruption if there's not corruption. And perceived corruption is just as bad, because you'll get people pulling online saying, look here, Matt, take this something under the table. I really need to get this done. And shortcutting and short-circuiting all kinds of things. That is not a good thing. We seem to be in a cesspool of this, if not corruption, this perceived corruption. And I'm wondering if in that kind of state, would people be interested in doing what we are talking about, to bring a regiment of accountability, transparency, structural changes, good governance?
I think until we start to bring these things to light, I think that question remains one that's still open. I will say that our board, our counselors, have already started to have discussions with leaders of the various parties, with individual public servants and legislators, and we have yet to run into anyone that said no to what we've talked about. So then that will call, what do we do to then bring that to bear? Will people change by themselves? One doesn't know. This is a season where you do have a little bit more of their attention, and you can then create a public awareness around what that is. So if somebody says, yes, I buy this and I back this, then when it comes to this legislation, which is supposed to be tabled in November by what the minister had spoken to. Well, where do people sit on it? We can talk to them ahead of time. We can let people know about what that is. We can help them to educate that constituency. One of the initiatives we have talked a little bit about is engaging youth. Youth unemployment is close to 33%. It's tremendously high. These folks are coming out of school unprepared, uneducated, and not really tied into one system or another, relatively disenfranchised by the entirety. This is a group that's willing and interested to learn more about how they can control their destiny. One alternative, obviously, is crime. It's the easiest path. You need $1. That's where you can get $1. And so I think we have to target groups that are willing to and interested in looking to change. And all of us in some ways have that capacity, but we have to understand, of the 18 things in front of us on any day, on the 45 tweets we get or things we see on Facebook that are interested, where is it that we can concentrate our effort and put on something? And so what we have to create, that's our responsibility, is a path that's easy to get into, that people can follow, and then we can give them information back around what we need to do. If we're going to sell transparency, we got to be transparent with what we're trying to do.
Now, Matt, you are a educated, university trained, master's degree holder. You're a social scientist. You are. You have been moving around, and not only here in other countries, you know how to get into the interior and find out what is happening. See, what I'm putting on you, Matt, today, and I don't mean to be unfair to you, because I think that you are well qualified and capable to handle all these things. I'm saying, though, Matt, when you look around at the whole situation that we have in the Bahamas, there's so many vices, apart from the crime, and these all conduits into the big picture of crime, but the vices that we see, we seem to be encouraging a culture of things that are vices to the Bahamas. We have the gambling now that's already been, I suppose, legalized. Well, that's legalized, Matt and Lana. We haven't done the banking side of it to make sure that best practices are being followed, that we won't get banks in trouble for receiving monies that could be considered ill-gotten gains with the corresponding banks of the world. And this is a very important thing. And we don't need to be sanctioned by OECD or anybody else, or FATCA, as this now. And I'm wondering, how do you, as a social scientist, be able to bring people together on a matter of, if we are putting this in young people's heads? See, this is on the education point. You talk about people, the easiest path is crime, because, they can't find a job. They come out, there's no job. Only about 5% or 7% perhaps will go off to college. The rest looking for something to do right away. And June is here. The month of June, when this referendum will be held, is a graduation month, month of examinations, end of school. So you got another 5,000-10,000 coming out when you really look at the numbers, and they're being inundated with what they see on the big thing called cable. They have a whole channel now of the balls dropping every 30 minutes.
And if I get my $20, wouldn't it make sense if I give that $20 so I might win hundreds of dollars as they present it, right?
See, what I'm saying, I'm saying we have gotten to a new level of where this is a very important thing, because I believe that this has a lot to do with what we're trying to do, bring about responsible governance, See, if we are showcasing these things in these areas, well, Cable Bahamas in business, I understand that, and they are doing things to make money. I understand that. But there's also a moral obligation and a responsible obligation that if kids, you're going to bring up the next group of kids watching this TV thing, talking about they waiting on their ball to fall. And now they got the pretty numbers that they're watching, and they said, I can see if I could win. See, you're cultivating a new generation of people who are going to be gambling, who believe that there's something for nothing. I'm only using that. I don't mean to rain on those guys' parade, because I'm sure they're spending a lot of money and they're trying to be responsible. But there's also the addictive part of this whole thing. We're cultivating vices in the Bahamas that will basically ruin us down the road. And I'm wondering, how do we govern? How do we come up with solutions in the midst of these things that are going to be obstacles for us to do the right stuff and it's getting people's heads on right?
It's becoming, and I grew up in neighborhoods. I grew up very poor in communities of color, and it's not that different from what we see in what's going on here. There are these problems do exist in other parts of the world, and so we have to look to that. it becomes much easier to make a short-term choice right now than a long-term choice. You know,
that's what it appears.
The cheapest meal is I go to fast food and I get bad food.
Yeah.
Why do we have, you know, issues of diabetes
Health.
and hypertension and all of those things
Six on the list of obesity.
and then that rolls into NHI, which is going to, you know, be I mean, so these things have an end result. So I think we have to boil it back down to things. I think we have to look at some basic things. Our think tank brought civil society together on that same platform we talked about, that we haven't really been together as a sector. So we started with some of the leaders of the civil society organizations, and we had about 30 of us that sat that day. And we broke up into 3 groups, and we talked about these 3 pillars, right? Accountability, education, and economic development. And the education group had some really great discussions. And education laced, besides freedom of information, education was that one that tied into every other thing we talked about. It came out, I don't know if it was that discussion or a subsequent one, that our kids, they don't get history or civics as a mandatory course after 9th grade, right? After 9th grade. So we're trying to talk about all these issues of, these are the generation that's going to inherit. You know, there's nothing can stop us. There's a group that's going to be there, and we're giving them tools that are not preparing them for, you know, for higher thinking, for the way things work here. And so introducing and working on systems like that, that's not a huge fix. That's a very simple thing we can start to do that puts forward ideas and gives us a platform to educate this generation. These folks that are graduating this year, we may not be able to get them, but I can tell you, when I was at Baha Mar, I worked with Jeff Lloyd and his Leadership Development Institute, and we saw kids coming from every community, underserved kids at risk, some coming out of the correctional system, who in 16 weeks were transformed from having no respect to being pillars of their community, responsible leaders. And the driver was not only that they learned this, they were broken down and built back up, but more importantly, they had something purposeful at the end of it. And so I think that's the other thing, is we have to figure out how we create something. If it's public service, if it's internships, if it's wider industries, we need to come up with that. That's part of what we also need to do. So the education side leads then directly into economic development. One of the bits of research that we want to put forward is we want to have a well investigated, understood group of new investment areas for the country. So besides the focus on policies that drive ease of business, we want people to understand with our input, with input from government, with input from experts in this area, look at where should we be putting our natural resources? Where's the opportunity? Tourism has long been that strong component. What does the financial system now move into? How does that transform? What are the other areas where we start to focus and put these talented and bright and capable individuals? Our kids are very smart, very functional.
They're very technological.
They move
savvy.
into something else if you don't give them a direct path towards vocation. So how do we reroute that energy and give them opportunities? And so we have to work on all of these at the same time. And they are big picture items. They are not easy to fix things. And in the midst of all the day-to-day crisis, we kind of have to keep going forward and kind of set ourselves to say, this group is going to work on these specific obstacles, and these obstacles are going to have these action items, and these action items are going to lead to this. And that's the only thing we can do. So right now our focus is building membership, getting people on board, getting the right people in the room with their eyes pointed forward and saying, here's what I can put towards that, and here's what that can lead us to.
Is there a shortcut to, and there's no shortcut to success, but is there a shortcut to mobilizing the many young people that's in this country that are technologically savvy, that can use that phone, that can cause things to happen for the Bahamas in an area of financial services or in tourism? We are up to some serious challenge on what's going on as far as the tourism product is concerned. Much more can be done. We need to have better linkages in the family violence. We need to make sure that these family violence are able to profit like New Providence or Grand Bahama maybe, or Abaco. And I believe that there's a direct link that can happen with young people who can be put to work to do a number of things to get started. They're coming out of school. They all can use this phone to talk all kind of crazy stuff. I'm saying that there has to be a way to incorporate that technology, find a way for job markets for these people to do things. And I'm wondering if that can be an endeavor pushed by the Organization for Responsible Governance to get people and get the private sector, get the government to focus on such things. And maybe we can have a whole big boom in jobs because there's so many things to do. See, there's Cuba over there opening up. We all concerned. Don't mind them say we're not concerned. I'm concerned. I know that we ought to be concerned because I've been there several times, and I can tell you the service and the attitude by people is phenomenal. and they go the extra mile on everything. Even on the extra mile, they go the extra mile. That's just the attitude of the people. See, that's what I'm concerned about. Ours, we've been kind of like muggling, kind of like reserved. We're marginalized so badly that, we really ain't got no drive. That's a serious thing. The young people today need to be able to be inculcated in the industry, in my view, so that they can do things and feel a part of a product. And I don't hear anybody talking about how they can be involved in a meaningful way to bring about the kind of, the new tourists, even if they're texting somebody in the European market. I'm just saying, find a way to have this whole thing organized where young people can get involved.
And I think that there are ways.
It's job.
Yeah, I think there are obviously ways to take benefit of those opportunities. I think it has to be looked at systemically, and I think we have to come up with a decision and understanding of what are the priorities. Because right now, out of this, that inevitably we have economic challenges. We have high unemployment, and things like Baha Mar didn't move forward. And I'm directly experienced with that. And inevitably, I see so many talented and bright young Bahamians who've gone in to develop their own business. One of the colleagues I know put together something called silent dance parties, and everybody listens to their headphones. They listen to the same thing, and they go into a community, and out they have this great party with no sound because everybody's connected in. It's taking advantage of a unique way and something that happens in other places. There are inevitably a lot of different opportunities we can bring here, but we have to have a government that supports that and sets that and makes it functional to do. That's got to be looked at in things. I mean, if you talk about technology, electricity has to be more affordable. You have to have those things in place. I mean, policies that drive that. We just heard about the Panama Papers, and there were 16,000 businesses. If every one of those businesses had one job connected to it, that's half our unemployment. I mean, those are the types of thoughts of how do we look at a sustainable future. All of those things have to be thought through in a way that's not, very honestly, in my brain or the capacity for me to say, here's a great idea. It has to be converted into effort and buy-in that our communities get behind.
And then of course, Lana, you have been in business for so long, and you hear the complaints all the time. Well, the company has been around for so long, but because you're only 17, you've only been in business for a year. Let me put it that way. But the point is, you've got the experience. We keep talking about lack of productivity, and lack of productivity in the workplace here in the Bahamas, which is a very important part of what our overall project should be, to focus on and get corrected. I believe lack of productivity has happened because people are not encouraged. The system isn't functioning right. Everybody goes to work at the same time. Everybody goes home at the same time. Everybody goes to lunch at the same time. There's gridlock on the streets of New Providence these days because everybody's doing the same thing at the same time. We don't seem to have any kind of idea of, ingenuity or innovative approaches to how we could stagger work shifts, how we can do things. They say the typical day, especially in government agencies, they say is, you get up at 8 o'clock when you're supposed to get up 6 o'clock. You get up 8 o'clock, drop the kids to school for 9 o'clock. You're supposed to be awake for 9 o'clock, but you reach to work quarter to 10, and then the minute you get to work, you drop down your bag or your briefcase, and then you go into the canteen and you get some coffee. You stay there for about 15, 20, 25 minutes, and if the gossip is sweet that day, if the punch come out, you may stay for an hour. And then the next thing you know, you go into the office to do some work. There's nothing much to be done, so you put the computer on and you play a little game, and then, of course, somebody may come to serve, and they seem to interrupt you and say, what you want? What you want? Yeah. And then, of course, you get to go to lunch around about 12, and you go for lunch until about 2 o'clock. You're supposed to have 1 hour for lunch. Then you come back, you have to use the bathroom and freshen up again. Then, time to pick up the kids. It's almost time for school. You pick up the kids, and you don't come back because school ran late. The kids were not ready. You had to look for them in the schoolyard. You drop them home or find a babysitter till you get there. You go back to work for another 20 minutes, and 5 o'clock, you're in traffic going home. Now, see, sounds all jokey, and it really is comical. But the point is, when did you work? What did you do on the job? Did we get some things done? No wonder we can't collect taxes. No wonder we're not going after people who owe. No wonder why nothing is being put into the coffers of the Treasury, because we're not doing things properly. Now, I bring it up not to put something on the people, though they deserve it. I'm saying the structure of government or the structure of government in these agencies and in some private sector companies too is so bad that no one is paying attention to that.
So you got bosses who are upset, especially in the private sector, because you got to wait for my couple of dollars, buddy.
Right.
And they're not doing anything. And you have to still pay national insurance. You still got to pay all these other things, and it's just too expensive to do business. And the productivity is not there, and they're not looking out for the product. And all these things are problems. And I'm saying, when you're moving forward with responsible governance in the country, these things play a very important role as to what we're going to do at the end of the day with what's the purpose of all this anyhow? If the productivity is not there, we can't turn a profit. If government is not efficient, what's the purpose of it? So how important is productivity and the attitudes toward?
I think it's essential. And I think that when we look at some of the platforms for where Organization for Responsible Governance comes forward, one is built on what they call the open government platform. And this recognized not only that there is a transparent process, but it's one that is driven to look at effective and efficient means. And it draws from the other sectors, from the civil society sector, but also very heavily from the corporate sector on how do you put in efficiencies that drive to the outcomes you're set forward to. That it's not about perpetuating a system, that it's not about keeping people in jobs just for a long, long time, but that your role is pointed to something specific so that you know you're working towards either a project goal or an outcome that is measured on a regular basis. So it's drawing from practices that are well in place in the corporate sector and applying them to government. Government holds a role that is unique. It cannot be totally corporatized, but it can draw from that in the same structure that the civil society can inform and draw from corporate society, so can government. So our thought is, when you look at some of the policies that are in place right now, the general order, right? The general orders, they protect civil servant jobs forever. And there are some wonderful civil servants there. I will tell you, having run in through a number of systems as of late, I've had some wonderful people help me through that system, and they are good at their job. They know what they're doing. And those people deserve to not only be in there, but be celebrated, recognized for what they do. However, there's a lot of folks who are sitting there, as you said, kind of killing that clock and doing that. And those are not systems that should be in place with public dollars, right? Those are not what move forward our governance or serve the needs that government critically is in place to, which is those people that are vulnerable, our day-to-day, the things that we depend upon, those systems. We need government in place for that, and we need a good governance in place for that. We need to know that when those decisions are made, they're made with the right reasons. Doesn't always mean they're going to make decisions that we like or that they're always going to be responsive to the individual. You always have that issue, but you have a comfort to know that, okay, I know what the rules are.
And I tell you, we are in for an uphill climb because, the attitude is one where we've been stacking these institutions with people who are, politically affiliated, and in some cases not even qualified, but that's how it is. And I don't know how we're going to change that. I know there has to be change, and I don't know which government is going to be willing and able and have an open mind to do it. That's why it has to swell from people. It has to swell from an organization such as this to just get the people talking and say, look, we deserve better. When you walk into the passport office, we deserve to know. For instance, today a lady called me out of Grand Bahama. The people in Grand Bahama have not gotten a passport from the office here since last year, since September of 2015. They're young people who are going off to school. They're young people who are needing to do a number of things with musical careers. I know a young lady who's a very, very beautiful, talented, gifted, behaving lady who has gotten an offer to sing on a record label. And she's trying to get off, and she's not gotten her passport from September of 2015. See, I'm saying it's almost September again. We need to do better than that. And I'm saying, I don't know why all the documents I'm told, and this is not just that case. There's so many cases like that. And I'm wondering, if you can get served, it is discouraging. It puts the whole family back. And that's just one example. There are all kinds of examples. These days, it doesn't seem as if some of these agencies or companies, here's a private sector kind of company thing, they don't send out bills. Does BTC really send out bills anymore? See, this is a very important thing, because I from the old school, I need to see bills in black and white. I want to know, I owe $20. Okay, fine, let's pay that. But you don't know. You get a call. They send something to your phone. They tell you this is what it is. Some days it's high and some days it's low, and you say, well, what the hell is it? See, this is a very important thing. See, this is a breakdown of what I'm talking about. And people don't trust the system. And when you get people who don't trust the system, Matt and Lana, what's going to happen is that people are going to be anti-establishment of so many things. Bad attitude, even about joining an organization like this and saying, let's make a difference. They almost don't believe that they will make a difference.
Well, and it starts from, you got to start with low hanging fruit, right? So there are groups and lots of folks who are interested in this, that talk about this and think about this on a daily basis. So we start there. And then they're connected to groups that are a little beyond that. Even when you talk about in government, we had one of the experts was a gentleman named Paul Lagunas from Columbia University. Paul comes from Mexico, and Mexico is one of those places, although you wouldn't think about it in that way, that has done some transformative work in the area of freedom of information and anti-corruption. And what he talked about is the fact that you assume that government is fixed, that those people that are public servants, they have a job, they hold on to that job. But the reality is they're broken up to different groups. There's some groups that I'm just killing time, and there's some groups that they're there, they have a job, they believe in that job.
Understood.
And when given an opportunity, they will stand up. They will push forward to take on a positive change. There do need to be protections in place. And I think that that's something that's a serious part that we need to talk about, which is the challenge of recriminations and being able to speak out without potential damage to your own self and your reputation.
No reprisals, no repercussions and consequences.
Right. There's got to be a whistleblower act. There's got to be law is fair and open. And that's what part of transparency brings as well. So once you got, and that's why this piece of legislation I think is so critical, because once that starts, it becomes the beginning of what needs to happen. And it's not just the actual legislation, it's the implementation of the legislation that I think is also crucial. And so there's a lot of language around what needs to happen once that's passed. We heard at the most recent public consultation that they were in Nassau, that there would probably be about a year before, if it passed theoretically in November, that it would be a year before it would even be implemented.
Yeah.
So you want to make sure that all those things are in place, but we have to follow through with the right steps, and it starts here and it moves forward day at a time.
So there's so many things on the board, on the drawing board to be done by the Organization for Responsible Governance, and let's run down some of those and those the meeting again that's going to happen, because I want to make sure that people start to get involved, and then we can have even more detailed discussions about so many things. You were telling me about the big meeting that's happening in May. May the 5th.
That's next Thursday on May the 5th. It's the Freedom of Information Public Education Forum, and that's going to be at the Dundas Center at 6:30 to 8:30 p.m. And we're partnering with Citizens for a Better Bahamas, Lamar Campbell. They've already submitted their recommendations for the bill, and he's going to do a presentation of that. We will also have the committee from the government that has been working on the Freedom of Information bill to present, and we also have the Bar Association, who's going to be presenting on what the Freedom of Information Act is and how does it relate to us as you know, as common Bahamians. So you can find out more about us if you go online to www.orgbahamas.com. You can also go on Twitter at #SpeakUp242, and you can also find us on Facebook at Org Bahamas Foundation. You know, and I just wanted to add that, you know, we are an apolitical platform, and I'm going to tell you the reason why I'm doing this, because I have a day job, right? You know, I do have New Oriental Cleaners and Walk and Roll Restaurant, but, you know, I also am a mother ahead of all of those things, and I have 3 children, and I want them to have a brighter Bahamas to grow up in.
Absolutely.
And that's, you know, what I want your listeners to think about is that, you know, we as Bahamians, we have to demand from our leadership, we elect, right, that they do evenly enforce the law. No one is above the law, right? If there's a law, somebody needs to enforce that law.
No different strokes for different folks,
Evenly,
straight across
exactly,
the board.
right? We want a better education for our kids, right? We want opportunities. We need to have ease of doing business. Okay, I'm running businesses. We are number 106 in the World Index for doing business, right?
Number
ease of doing business.
Yeah, ease of
yes.
doing business.
You know, more efficient government, like we're talking about the passport office. Why does it take 3 months for me to get a passport when, you know, so one of the things that you had that we had mentioned about crime is a big problem, right? Crime is a symptom, right? What are the core issues? We as Bahamians need to think of what are the core issues. There are no opportunities.
That's correct.
Right? We need to have opportunities for our young people to look and say, oh, you know, I can get involved with this, or I can be an entrepreneur. I have a great idea. Someone is going to back me on this. You know, not that 5% that do go away to college, that they're going to go and stay away. We're going to have that brain drain, right? Because there are no opportunities. And that's where it's all linked together. Economic growth and unemployment are the reasons for crime. Poor economic growth.
Absolutely. And Matt said something earlier that, you know, you've got to be able to stimulate things in such a way that businesses will be able to do more things. And you've got to find ways of creating the opportunity for people to go into business, like people that who were at Bahama, but now they're doing their own thing, and it's perhaps going good. We need encouragement. The government has to find ways, and when I say the government, I'm talking about the governments are continuous. So whomever is there have to find ways and means of looking at it where they can open doors and opportunities for people. Once they get the opportunity, I believe you put a Bahamian anywhere to do something and he has a chance, he will soar. I see people are doing all kinds of creative things, but they need opportunities, more of it. And I suppose that will help us with our problems with the unemployment. People can become more owners. And this is really the dispensation, Matt, of doing the thing about ownership. People don't just want a job anymore. They want to own some things. And the government has to find a creative way of making sure ownership happens. And so the only way that can happen is if they create the opportunities, eh? They got to find ways and means to create that.
And there has to be a fertile ground for that. They have to know that they're working in a level playing field. And I think that's the biggest challenge, right? And so transparency, as you said, whether it be corruption or perceived corruption, perception is reality. And every question that happens, every business contract that's made, every decision, every gap. I mean, that gap in passport could have a real strong reason. Maybe there is something that is so logged up that person didn't get that forward. But without that knowledge, without that access to information, you're going to assume the worst, and that then piles up into a dissatisfaction and disenfranchisement.
Absolutely. Well, listen, Matt, I want to thank you very much today, you and Lana. Matthew Aubrey, the Executive Director of the Organization for Responsible Governance, and of course, Lana Lee Brogdon. I believe I got it right just now. Almost. Let me try it again. And she's the president of New Oriental Laundry. And of course, she's also the big boss behind all that good Chinese food out west. That I like to go there all the time. And it's called
Walk and Roll.
Walk and Wool. Let's walk and wool. And of course, we're walking and wooling out of here. And I want to thank you both for coming by today. This is the beginning. And so, you know, you have to understand that in the beginning like this, when people are hearing this for the first time, they've got to process this. Now, who's this group? First, they would think, oh, this perhaps a political organization. No, it's not. This is our group, all Bahamians and all Bahamians by heart. We want to rebuild the Bahamas, and the only way we can do it is that everybody gets involved. Come to these forums that we're going to be having, and not only that, make your contribution about all these different topics. The big one is coming up on May the 5th. That's going to be over at the Dundas. And you can sit down and share your views on this whole thing about the Freedom of Information Act and all that. If you don't have no input in it, when it comes out, if these fellas get away with what they propose to bring to Parliament and pass into law, then you might as well forget it. You got to get out there and say, look, this is what we want to see, and join the Organization for Responsible Governance.
Thank you so much, Steve.
Thank you. Thank you again. Well, that's our show for the day, and it's been more information. Sometimes I do a big working session on a Tuesday, and this has been good because it's all consumer-driven. It's all about what we want to do to get the communities out there to understand that there's another life going on outside of politics. There's some people working very hard to make this country better, and you should be one of them every chance you get. Let's go home, Nate. Well, that's my jingle to tell me it is, in fact, time. And tonight is pea soup and dumpling night, so I'm looking forward to it. Nassau Motor Company, we've been brought to you by today. Commonwealth Bank, the Ministry of Tourism, Kalina Insurance for comprehensive coverage. Bahamas Foot and Ankle on Blake Road, Superwash with 10 locations. Bank in the Bahamas, the Bank of Solutions.
Super Value, the all-Bahamian supermarkets, McKinney Media Group for effective PR concepts and advertisement. You want to call us first. We've also been brought to you today by Advantage Insurance Brokers, 61 Collins Avenue, Ron's Electric Motors, Clarendon Wolf Road, Sky Bahamas, professionals in every way, every day. Seafowl, Cleaner Financial Advisors Limited, Executive Printers, they do laser check prints just right. And Henry F. Store, the light people on Mackey Street. Also, Buddy's Wings and Greens on Fox Hill Road, right next to Freedom Park. Go by and get yourself a nice green smoothie and some nice wings tonight if you feel like it. We're going to see you tomorrow on the show. John Bostic joins me tomorrow. Lots of things to talk about. We've been tackling this gender equality bill, is what they call it. I call it the citizenship bills, but I don't know what I'm talking about. They know what they are. We're going to talk with John tomorrow and see if we have anything new. We'll also bring up this whole freedom of information bit to get you up to speed on it because, we don't want anything to go under our noses. So you want to be a part of that right here tomorrow on Hard Copy. Thursday, look out, Renwood Wells, the political twins, and Renwood and Rollins will be here on Thursday, and on Friday, something big coming your way. Just stand by. This is Hard Copy. Good night. We'll see you tomorrow, God willing.
This is Peace Radio.